Hi guys, it's Angela here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you for being here. I'm going to share with you 3 really short and quick experiences of my time growing up as a Jehovah's Witness. So I was born into the religion. My parents and all my brothers and sisters were Jehovah's Witnesses, and I am the youngest in my family. So one of my earliest experiences is going to the Kingdom Hall, and this one day, I think it was a midweek eve meeting, because I remember it being quite late, and I must have been about 4 or 5. And in our Kingdom Hall, we had, as is in most Kingdom Halls, you have the platform, but in our Kingdom Hall we had the main congregation sitting directly in front of the platform, and then we had a few seats to the left of the platform and a few seats on the right hand side of the platform. And this one day, I remember wanting to go to the toilet, and my mum said, "Oh, okay, I'll take it." And I said, "No, I'm a big girl now. I can go on my own." So my mum said, "Okay." So I remember I got in so much trouble. It was really embarrassing too. So as a little kid, you don't think about these things. So I got up. We were sat on the left hand side of the platform, and the toilet was on the right hand side of the hall. So I, instead of getting up, walking down the left hand side of the hall, round the back and up the right hand side to go to the toilet, as I thought my 4-year-old self, got up and walked straight across the platform and went to the toilet. Never thought anything of it. So on my way back, I could see my mum. She's looking at me and she's absolutely going ballistic, because people in the audience are looking at her and they are so embarrassed. They've got these looks of embarrassment on their face, and I didn't know what was going on until I got back. And what had happened was I did the same thing. I didn't go down the aisle, round the back and up towards our seat. I walked right in front of everybody and walked right across the platform. But this time, as a 4-year-old, I had my skirt tucked into my pants. I had my skirt tucked into my knickers, and not only that, the whole reel of toilet paper was in the back of my knickers, and I'd walked it all out of the toilet. Oh my God. I mean, I got back and my brothers and sisters were like howling, and my mother really told me off. Oh, do you know, there's some things that you remember from your childhood, and that is one thing. Oh my goodness, I didn't live it down for ages. And then when I realised what had happened, obviously I was dead embarrassed and started to cry, and then because I'd got a telling off and everything. So, you know, that is one good thing that I remember, or one funny thing that I remember growing up as a Jehovah's Witness. And the other thing that we used to do, this is late 60s and very early 70s, was in our hall after the meetings we used to have a little kitchen on the side, and we used to make, or the adults used to make tea and prepare orange squash and drinks, and then they used to bring little cakes in, and we used to have that after the meetings. And growing up, I remember that so much, and that was one of the things, if I'm honest, that used to get me to the meetings as a kid, knowing that I was going to have cake and orange squash after the meetings, and I used to so look forward to that. And then, you know, things changed, and, you know, we weren't allowed to do that anymore. So then another memory that I have was I was about 5 or 6, and just down the road from our Kingdom Hall we had a clothes shop. Now again, late 60s, early 70s. You didn't. It's not like today where you've got loads of choices for buying clothes or going on the internet and shopping. No, there was very, very little choice in where you got your clothes from. And there was a shop just down from the Kingdom Hall that used to sell coats. And I remember my mum took me and my sisters to the shop, and she bought us all coats. And I remember my 2 sisters had these beautiful rust coloured coats with these epaulettes and pockets and stuff, and I thought their coat was great. But oh my goodness, I absolutely loved my coat, because my coat was red. It was bright red, and it had like a plastic texture. But not only that, it had a belt, a matching red belt, and it was a belt with a buckle. But the best thing of all, it had this beautiful white collar. Now, being about 5 or 6, the concept that Christmas is wrong and everything didn't really register with me. And going to school, obviously we were taught about Father Christmas and Santa Claus, and at school the kids were all celebrating Christmas, and although I wasn't allowed to celebrate Christmas, you couldn't help but see it. Father Christmas. Well, I loved this coat, absolutely loved this coat, because I used to pretend that I was like Father Christmas's child in this coat, and I used to beg my mum to buy me a red hat with a white trim, so I can pretend to be not only Father Christmas's child but also a little Christmas elf. So I absolutely loved that coat. I loved it. And I was always like, yeah, my sisters are dead jealous because they haven't got a Christmas coat like me. So I was rocking it at the age of 5 or 6. Anyway, I remember my mum sort of being a bit upset this one day, and she'd said that the elders had asked her why I was in this red and white coat, and they'd made comment that I was, were we now celebrating Christmas, or I looked, or something like that. And I remember my mum saying, take no notice, they don't determine what I buy for my children and what they wear. So I know she was a little bit upset about that. So I was allowed to keep my coat, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I remember being, I remember this coat being quite tight for me and still trying to squeeze it on. I loved it. Anyway, the third thing I remember is being about, I was a bit older, I was about 11 or 12, and at the time brooches were the in thing. And I remember going to the Kingdom Hall I can't remember if it was a weekday or Sunday, but I had this brooch on, and this brooch, because at that age you're innocent, and you soon get the innocence kicked out of you, that's for sure. But I was really innocent, and I'd had this brooch on, and it looked like a cross. And I remember one of the elders, and I distinctly him coming up to me after the meeting and asking me about this brooch, and he was saying, oh, what's that? And I says, oh, it's a brooch. He goes, oh, what's it supposed to be? And I was like, what do you mean? It's a brooch? And he was like, oh, because it looks like a cross. And I was like, and at that point, obviously, it didn't register with me. And I remember thinking, does it? And he was like, yeah, well, we don't recognise the cross, and you shouldn't really wear crosses. And I remember that I was at that age, I was so impressionable, and that was it. Took the brooch off, chucked it in the drawer, and never wore it again. I was that impressionable. And I don't even think I told my mum, because I think if I'd told my mum, she would have probably just, because the great thing about my parents, and I'm going to do a video about this at another time, but the great thing about my parents were, although they recognised, the teachings of the doctrines, they thought that some of the teachings were just a little bit too far-fetched, and they didn't accept that you had to be really rigid with it. So my family were quite flexible. So when my dad stopped going, whilst he didn't stop my mother going and the kids from going, my brothers and sisters, at the same time, no way was my mother ever going to shun him. That was never going to happen. And then as my brothers and sisters, as they got older, all decided that they weren't going to go, and it was just me and my mother going. Again, my dad was like, yeah, whatever, that's absolutely fine, it's their choice. And there was no way on this earth my father was going to support my mother to shun her children, and my mother in a million years would never shun her children. And even when I woke up and I stopped going in my 20s, again, my mother, she really tried hard to get me to come back. And even right up until her death 2-3 years ago, she really tried. She was always giving me magazines and really encouraging me to go to the meetings and the assemblies, but never would she shun me. And because of that, because my mother refused to shun me, because she was just like, how can you give birth to your children, love them unconditionally, but shun them because some man said so? She was having none of that nonsense. So because that was her view and our family's view, we as a family, myself included, and certainly my mother, we were probably seen as a little bit weak and, bad association, and, we were always on the fringes of association in the organisation, just because we chose to exercise our free will, as the witnesses always say. We chose to exercise that and say, we hear what you say, but actually we're not going to follow you to the letter. And for anybody that is being shunned, I just cannot imagine what that feels, and my heart goes out to you, because that must be the worst thing if your family is shunning you, if your mother, your father, is shunning you, if your children are shunning you as parents. That is the worst thing ever, and it should never, ever, ever happen. Never. So yeah, if that's your experience, then my heart goes out to you. But yeah, guys, I just wanted to come in and share with you those 3 very quick memories of me growing up as a Jehovah's Witness. I will put the link down below. I hate that expression. It sounds quite rude, doesn't it? It sounds really rude when it says, check out down below. It sounds really rude, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I'll put the link in the description box below, and about my life as a Jehovah's Witness, and also a few other videos that I've made. Anyway, guys, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for watching my videos. If this is your first time here, please don't forget to click that red subscribe button and the notification bell. And if you have previously subscribed, thank you. Listen, guys, have a wonderful day, and I will see you soon.